Howdy, folks. Happy Thursday. It's one of those days in Buffalo where, you've just turned on the air conditioner for the house and then it drops into the 40s and you have to shut off the air conditioner and turn on the heat. And then it starts raining and it's like in the 50s. And it's like, can we get to the friggin' summer, please? I mean, Jesus. But
Although
anyway.
you'll complain about that too in a few weeks.
No, I'll only complain for that 3 weeks in like late July and August when it's oppressive. I hate really hot heat. I don't like 90 degrees. It's just brutal. So, but I'm born to complain. What can I say? Anyway,
Born to Complain. That's a great shirt.
there you go. X got his E5 shirt, and I should get Born to Complain.
Born to Complain. I
gotta search. I'm sure there's there's one of these T-shirt factories online that Born to Complain on there, so I should get that.
That'd be perfect.
There you go. All right, we'll start with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
So it's going to be hockey related. So let's talk about the Flyers' latest signing of Nick Seeler to a 2-year deal. This is the interesting part about it. The first reaction is always, it's league minimum. Can always bury it in the minors. The second reaction should be, why 2 years? There's no market demand for him, and he's a replacement level player. 2 years ago, he wasn't even in the league. The only team that really wants him is the Flyers, and they gave him 2 years. There's no reason to do that.
I'll give you the reason why.
Go ahead.
They don't want him claimed on waivers, and if they send him down through waivers,
he's not that valuable, Mike.
I know, but I'm okay because.
So that's the thing. All right. So based on what you're saying, which may be true, means that he is really their number 7. And if you're a number 7 team with Nick Seeler, you're not a good team.
No, and they're not. I mean, right now they're not. And if they have aims,
but that's for 2 years they're declaring this.
Right, but if they have aims of being a good team, he shouldn't be their number 7. But I think he is.
The point.
Now, okay, and the reason I know this for a fact is, and Kyle Clifford is a veteran player. He's won a cup.
Mm-hmm.
The Leafs signed him to a 2-year deal. I think it was in March. Okay, for league minimum, or around league minimum, $762.50. Okay,
right.
$762,500. And the reason they gave him 2 years is for that very reason. I think they want him as a 13th forward. They're probably going to carry 12 forwards during the year. They want to be able to send him down to the Marlies without the worry of some team claiming him on waivers. If he had 1 year on his contract, somebody might claim him because he's a veteran.
Smart to sign Nick Seeler right away when you have just over $5 million of cap space, no backup goalie, 3 RFAs, and still spots to fill on the roster.
Well, your backup goalie is the Russian.
You don't know that. He's not here yet.
No, but
he's not on Cap Central yet because he's not here yet.
They signed him.
He's not counting until next year. So, okay, you want to count him as your backup? Fine. You still have 3 RFAs, and you have UFA spots to fill, and you sign Nick Seeler.
Yeah. I mean, it's a variable contract, so really it doesn't.
But in 2 years, you don't do it.
I mean, if you ask me, would I do it? No, because I don't think Nick Seeler is a good defenseman. I mean, would I have signed Kyle Clifford to a 2-year deal? I probably would have signed him to a 1-year deal because I want a veteran presence there. That's fine. But I understand the reason why, because
you realize the longer you do this, because you do Cap Central, realize the longer you do this, these extra 775s add up. And then, what? It eventually stops you from being able to get a player. It does.
Yeah, no, and I'm writing a piece right now for Hockey Buzz that'll be posted right after the show about what are the decisions that Toronto's going to make, and I won't go into all the details about it, but okay, yeah, I mean, if Jason Spezza comes back at $750,000, okay, that eats up almost $1 million, but that's league minimum. If they get Giordano for a lesser amount, that you don't have a lot of cash. You're going to have to basically be money in, money out. And the Flyers are in the same boat. Okay, you sign Giordano for a defenseman probably goes for of his caliber. Probably if he's taking veteran minimum, he's probably getting at least $2 million. So, okay, so you sign him for $2 million. Bye-bye, Justin Hall. It's over with.
I mean, look, the Flyers have 6 defensemen under contract. Sealer's one of them. Ronnie Attard is one of them. And Cam York is one of them. Attard shouldn't start the season with them. And they still have this cap deficit. This is, people should look at this and say, I just want fans to look at this with open eyes and say, okay, Nick Seeler's our number 7. Say it after me because he is your number 7.
Yeah, I know. We're gonna start with the Ack will be here in a couple minutes. Kevin Allen will be joining us in about 10 minutes. We'll get really into the nuts and bolts of the games from last night, but we'll start with the Rangers. And
I will tell you this on too, Mike, and before we start the show, yep. Scherzer's got an oblique. He's out for a month.
That sucks. Without Scherzer and DeGrom, if they can stay where they are, if they can stay like in first or second and get those guys back, then they're in real great shape.
Read all about it at Full Press Baseball. That's where it's going to be.
Yep. Yeah. I'll be writing about that team. That's what are they? 28-9, 29-9. Like that team. Wow. You know what I'm talking about, folks.
This could be another 2000, or it could be another.
It could be another 98, and it could be a complete collapse. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
Bill C., I did not miss the show. I was in the background. So, Ack was on his iPad and did not see me. So,
the streak lives, Bill C.
Streak lives. Sorry. The only thing good about, you, Bill C., is that you have the same emblem as Bill Bruford that he wore many times playing the drums. He always wore a Boston Bruins jersey, which is great. Boston Bruins BB, Bill Bruford BB. There you go.
Right.
Okay. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, May 19th, 2022.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Okay, we'll start with the Rangers and Hurricanes. And this was a game that, long time in playoff lore that a team that deserves to win doesn't, and a team that doesn't deserve to win does. And that was the case with game 1.
Can I mention a Rangers signing just because people are asking me about it?
Yeah.
His name is Gustav Rydell. He's a free agent from Sweden. I don't know. But, he's 6'3", 200-pound center. Why not?
Yeah, I don't know much. I don't know anything about him, but let's just look up his stats here. Gustav, Rydell.
Idahl.
There you go. 27 years old. Has played with Färjestad for the last 5 seasons. I actually had a really good year last year. 15 goals, 15 assists, 44 games. He's 6'3", 209. So
give it a shot. Sure.
If he can skate, maybe he's a 4th line guy.
But you have to be able to skate in that league, so you have to assume there's some skating ability there.
Right, exactly. Okay, so game 1 last night. I'll just say this: like I said, teams that deserve to win sometimes don't. Teams that don't deserve to win sometimes do. I think that was the narrative of last night's game because the Rangers had a number of. They got the early goal. They had a couple chances to really extend the lead and it put Carolina behind the 8 ball at home. They couldn't do it. Ronta was really good, actually. He made a couple acrobatic saves. I
would say there were 2 times he left the net open for the Rangers, though. The
one save that he made, I think it was on Kakko. My groin hurt watching that because he did a full split. But okay, I'll just say this. I know this is hockey superstition and it maybe means nothing. But Sean McDonough, who was the play-by-play guy for ESPN last night, him and Ray Ferraro, and he did a pretty good job. But in the third period, when a team is up 1-0, you don't say, well, Carolina has not been shut out.
Yeah.
And then literally like 5 seconds later, breaks in and scores the tying goal. For people like, I have a vested interest here because I have Rangers in my pool. So him saying shut out, I was throwing stuff at the TV. I think it was really,
I get it.
It really, get it. But Carolina dominated that third period, Russ. But Shesterkin was fantastic. So let's just talk regulation in this game.
So regulation, the Rangers played it right. Actually, they used Braden Schneider more like I wanted them to. They used Miller a lot. They used Keandre Miller for 25 minutes this game. And Some people would like him to play more physical. I get it. We still have to remember he's only been a defenseman for 5 years.
Oh, believe me, Seth Jarvis thought he was playing physical.
Oh, I know. And that was another thing I talked about. I said Seth Jarvis is a big part of their offense. Expect the Rangers to hammer him, and they did. So I think the game plan was right for the Rangers. Things didn't break right, as we know. That late goal by Aho can happen anytime. The goal with, we'll talk about overtime after. But as far as regulation, I think it was in the second period that Rod Brind'Amour got interviewed, and he was frustrated.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, this is the difference. If you can go up 2-0 on the Hurricanes, they're a completely different team. And the Rangers almost went up 2-0 because I think it was Kakko that shot one through the crease area there that could have gone in. They're a completely different team. The game plan changes. The way their aggressiveness changes. All of a sudden, things change. And even at 1-0, it changed for at least 2 periods in that game. So I want to tell you, that is the Achilles heel of the Hurricanes that nobody talks about, that I've been trying to talk about for the whole times that I've been given previews. So good job for Gallant. Brind'Amour did get his win. I do think Brind'Amour's got some things to worry about.
Well, the one thing that, and I was tracking this as the game was going along, because, I mean, obviously the kid line for the Rangers scored the goal, Edel scoring.
And he had a couple good chances in that game too.
But the ice time, the split up of ice time for that kid line, I mean, it got better as the game went along. But I mean, okay, Lafreniere had 15 minutes, 14 seconds. Kakko 14-17, Hedel 13-38. Around the middle of the second period, they were like at 4 minutes. It was ridiculous. The fourth line with Reeves and Mott were playing more than the third line.
Well, I'll tell you why. I think I know why.
Okay.
And this is, I think, part of like the analytics department. They probably had a stat that says if the Rangers can go up 2-0 on Carolina, your percent chance of winning is like 82% or something. And I think they pressed it in the second period to get that second goal. And I think that's why it came at the expense of the kid line.
Now we welcome Kevin Allen to the show. Kev, good evening.
Hey there.
We're just talking about game 1 of Rangers Hurricanes, and I of course I go down the road of the superstition when I said, Sean McDonough about 15 seconds before Aho ties it says, the Carolina Hurricanes have not been shut out in the playoffs since blah 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 blah, and then Aho scores. I mean, and obviously has no connection to what was happening on the ice, but it's just hockey superstition. It's like a no-hitter. You don't say shutout. So
no, I agree with that. I mean, that is just part of the tradition. And when the guys, do it, usually the partner always gives them grief for doing it, just as, that's part of the tradition too, I guess. But I only saw the beginning of the Carolina Rangers game yesterday, and then I saw the last 2 periods of Calgary Edmonton. And I guess that's all I really needed to see.
Oh yeah, no, but let's stick with the Rangers here, because in overtime, as usual, it's not like one of the star players that scores. It's like a 6th defenseman, and it was Ian Cole.
I mean, but it wasn't even Ian Cole.
No. But I was going to lay it out. I was going to lay it out here, Russ. I want to ask you this first, because it was Ian Cole. He shot it toward the net. It went off Ryan Lindgren's stick and passed Shesterkin, who had a fantastic game. And I mean, I don't know if I blame him, but I heard the guys on the Merrick show earlier say that, Shesterkin sort of like looked at the sky after the goal. And
he didn't look at the sky. He looked like straight off into the distance, kind of like, well, I gave my best and this sucks. And I don't blame him. I don't think he did that to Lindgren. He didn't look at Lindgren. Right. So I didn't take it that way. And, look, I'm happy for Ian Cole. He's been in this game for a long time, and, he finally had the spotlight on him for a minute. What I do want to get into, though, is Paul Bissonnette, because he is a 400-pound gorilla on Twitter. He is always a Penguin, will always be a Penguin, will always be a Ranger hater. And the fact that he's starting up with fans on Twitter on his day off, it just shows that, you know what? You're good at your job as on television, but when you're not on TV, you're still representing the company. And if you keep acting like that on Twitter, I don't know how well TNT is going to take to that because, again, they don't want guys starting up with fans on Twitter. They want reaction on in the TV studio. That's what they want.
I mean, Kev, this is in a long line of playoff games where the team that maybe deserved to win doesn't win. But Carolina, I think, played a good period and about 5 minutes in overtime and got the victory. It's on the Rangers to not have extended the lead, because if they had extended the lead, then the Carolina would have been down 2-0 or 3-0. But it's going to be up to the Rangers to sort of bounce back from a game where they should have won and didn't win. And if they can't do that, then they don't deserve to win the series.
Yeah, but in the playoffs, I don't think there is such a thing as a game you should have won. You know what I mean? Like, this is the way playoff hockey, kind of goes. And I don't, with all due respect, I don't think ESPN or Ross knows what Shesterkin was thinking on that.
I just gave my opinion as what I thought was going on, but yeah.
I mean, who really knows? I didn't blame him for that goal. I saw it. That is, I mean, you hit the nail on the head when you said that's the kind of goal that usually, that's what the great Igor Larionov is opposed to our overtime system. He likes shootout because he said it's always a goal that's not a electrifying goal. It's some guy hammering the puck at the net and everybody gets in front. And that's why he just said, why play all night to get a goal like that? Why don't we just have a shootout?
Josh Manson's overtime goal against St. Louis. It was a wrist shot from the point, and the whole thing was Binnington didn't see it. And if Binnington sees it, he stops it, but he didn't see it, and it goes in the net. So,
Igor said that the shootout was good enough for soccer, which is a much bigger game than our game. So, why is it good enough for us? Now, I completely disagree and all that, but, that's the way he kind of always felt on that. But, the one thing that I do think was evident at that in that game is the Rangers just needed to show, hey, look, we're going to be able to compete and we can win this series. And I think they felt that after that game. It wasn't, Shesterkin's back being himself again, and they've got the horses in order to do it. And to be honest, like, I thought they got inside Carolina's defense a little bit.
I thought that they were the quicker team, even in the third period when Carolina was pouring it on. I thought the Rangers were winning the puck battles, winning the stick battles. They were faster, and that's a revelation because everybody said, "Well,
I don't think they're faster, but they were in that game. They were quicker. I don't think that the Rangers are faster than Carolina. Carolina's a pretty quick team too, but in that game they were quicker to the puck. But and the other thing too, on the first goal, it's the first time that we see that Jacob Slavin is not invincible. He swung at the puck and missed. The whole. I mean, Lord, we haven't played that. He's already plus 10 and got a bunch of points, and he's not known for points. He was just having an incredible playoff. And then on the first, it was like the Rangers. If you're going to beat one defenseman on your first goal in that series, you'd hope it would be Jacob Slavin.
Now, with both games, we're going to bring up some things away from the ice. And Russ, after the game, Paul Bissonnette went to Twitter.
Yeah, which is what I was talking about.
Yeah, and went to Twitter and made some, I think, disparaging comments about like Ranger fans. And it's like, really, I mean, the job of a on-air commentator is to play it down the middle, is not to be a pom-pom waver. And we found, we looked into Bissonnette and found, who was his team what is the organization that drafted him? And what is the organization that played the Rangers in the first round and lost in game 7 in overtime? And does that color his opinion of the Rangers? I mean, honestly,
but you know what? You're going down the wrong road there. He's a Coyote. I mean, I don't know. Like we hired.
He became a Coyote.
No, but he's a Coyote.
Like friends with a lot of
that may be, but I'm telling you, if you ask him what he associates with, the Coyotes gave him his big break.
Sure.
And he loves that organization. He loves all the people there and everything else. Like,
What's the reason why he's acting the way he is?
Well, I mean, maybe he has developed a dislike for Ranger fans through the years, or when he was with Pittsburgh. But I'm just saying, to say he's never shaken his Penguins. I would argue he's more kind of a Coyote.
Okay.
Let's put it this way: if he suddenly got into whatever Hall of Fame and they said you had to wear a jersey, I'm pretty sure it would be the Coyotes.
No, right.
I mean, I'm not. I can't be positive of that, but
I will grant your point, Kev. But okay, here's the tweet. I'll just read it out. Ranger fans cried so much that they're now getting handouts, just like they needed all the calls in round 1 to advance. What a bunch of spoiled brats. Could this be any more pathetic? The answer is no. Just more of a reason to root for the Hurricanes. That's just not a tweet that a commentator on.
No, and here's the translation.
He should make it, yeah.
And here's the translation, Kev. The translation is Sidney Crosby is the one who cried about the helmet thing. And honestly, Pedersen could have just put the helmet back on had he known the rule. That is not the league's fault. But Bissonnette is now blaming it on the league because Crosby blamed it on the league. That's where the Penguins alliance comes in for me.
Well, that may be the case that he has some deep-seated. Now, regardless of what his colors are, like, he shouldn't be doing that.
No, that's my basic point.
I completely agree with that. Yeah.
Even though they're on another broadcast, I didn't see Ryan Callahan pom waving for the Rangers. So or I didn't even see Wayne Gretzky, who played a good chunk of his career with the Rangers, being a pro Rangers guy, played down the middle. But anyway,
look, if he does it a few more times, TNT will say something to him.
I agree with Russ on that. I think one of the reasons they wanted Bissonnette is that he is not a cookie cutter analyst. I think that's what got him his job, and I think he probably feels he has license to kill, because that's why they hired him. But this is too far. I mean, you got to keep walking. Like if someone.
I didn't see what happened. Could you guys tell me what happened, just in case?
He tweeted after the game, basically calling Ranger fans spoiled brats, and that he was rooting for the Canes. And
because the Rangers got all these calls, like they got the helmet call,
right?
And now they're getting more calls because they cried about it. That's what.
And let's harken back to Game 6 in the first round, where I'm sure anybody in Toronto appreciated the fact that he chanted "Go Leafs, go" on the broadcast.
Right.
I mean, come on. That's bad.
Who did that? Is that Bissonnette?
Yeah, he chanted "Go Leafs, go." He's from Welland, so he's from Southern Ontario.
So he's
a Leaf fan.
Now we're going to say he's a Leafs guy too.
He's a Leafs fan.
Well, he's a Leafs fan. He's admittedly a Leafs fan. I don't have a problem with that. I don't know.
No, but here was the problem. When you act like a 400-pound gorilla on Twitter, and you were drafted in the same draft class as Marc-Andre Fleury and many of those Penguins, and now you're sort of sticking up for Sidney Crosby when it looks like the Rangers are getting favors, which they weren't.
Yeah.
That's just a bad look.
Well, and it is kind of complicated because of what his position is. Now, Ryan Callahan is different because he is an in-game analyst.
Right.
Bissonnette is a national, commentator. And it is acceptable, in my opinion, because you do see it all the time, to just speak from the, kind of the good of the game. That's not the right phrasing, but, you just kind of have like I'd say that it's important to get the Oilers in the playoffs for the league because we want to see Connor McDavid. He should be able to show us what he can do. And so, and we've now given Bissonnette like 3 different teams. Like I say, I've seen him very pro Coyote, and you've seen him very pro Maple Leafs, and Russ has seen him very pro Penguins in his opinion. So, maybe that's kind of his stick that he just kind of rotates along. I don't know.
I think part of it is. I think part of it. I actually do. I didn't like him at first. I wasn't never a big he's this big social media phenom kind of, and so that's not surprising that Twitter would be like where he goes and does this kind of stuff. Like that is where he became what he is.
And that's fine if he wants to go on Twitter to do that. But I honestly think
he still represents TNT.
Right.
Right. He's not the first players to be on that. No, he does represent TNT, and I agree.
And engaging with fans is difficult.
And I
you
know
know,
that-
like what, like, you know, I remember Gordon Miller telling me at TSN, we were saying, you know, if you're walking down the street and the guy sort of engaged you in an argument, you wouldn't stop and argue with him. You'd keep walking.
Right.
So that's what he says. Just keep walking.
So what happens next time when on TNT they carry one of the Rangers Canes game and they in the studio they go, "Hey Biz, we see you're getting into it with the Ranger fans on Twitter." You know, then what's that going to turn into?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, they wouldn't do that.
You don't think they would? I don't know. They get pretty.
I don't think they would do that.
See, that's the thing. I think they're going for that Charles Barkley, Jack O'Neal dynamic.
They get pretty loose. They might.
Yeah.
Yeah, but does Barkley fight on Twitter? I don't know.
No, he won't fight on Twitter, but
he fights on the panel, which it's playful. But
but I that's different than fighting with Twitter people. Like I'm not sure I would do that. So
I'm kind of agree. So whatever guys in the chat room, and we will stop talking about this and talk about the games in a second. But one of the things in the chat room I do agree with, like Kevin Weeks engages with fans, but doesn't get in trouble for doing it. Like there is a way of engaging with fans.
Yeah, he's got the right way of doing it.
I don't. Like Kevin doesn't argue with fans, does he?
No.
Kevin
doesn't. He's really good at engaging with fans. Like he does.
He's a friendly guy, so he interacts.
Yeah, I mean that's two different things, though. I mean, we're talking about engaging with fans is what you want. Like there's a lot of people who do that and do it well, but not fighting with them. So.
Now, okay, I needed my rest the last couple of days, and thankfully I got it because I was able to stay up and watch all of Edmonton, Calgary, and boy, am I glad I did. And okay, I'll start with this, and this is not the only note I want to bring to this, but I'm just going to say, because it was early in the game when Connor McDavid high-sticked Matthew Tkachuk and nothing was called, and I'm like, here we go. NHL star system. What the hell? Where was the call? But then what happens? Milan Lucic hits Connor McDavid, and who gets called? It was a clean check. It was a clean check.
I didn't think about that when it happened, honestly.
And this is the thing about that, like the high stick happened, but there is something too about. I think the referees are the human aspect of referees. Of at that point, it was like 3-0 Calgary.
Right.
It was completely. So I mean, to give McDavid a penalty there, it's just. I think that there is a human side of referees. Unless it's blatant, they're not going to put a team. They don't want to completely bury a team. We've all seen that.
But here, I want Kevin to respond to that. The job of the referees is not to keep a team that's behind 3-0 in the game. It's to call the infractions that need to be called. And so I don't care for 6-0 or 1-0. That's a high sticking penalty.
Well, I agree with you, Mike. I'm just saying of that game, that's what we want to talk about.
No.
I don't even know. Like that was an incredible game.
Oh, it's a fantastic
game. For a lot of reasons, and there's plenty to unpack on that. And I don't disagree with you. I thought it was a penalty. But
no, I mean the thing that was just the top. But the thing I wanted to say was those two teams hadn't played since 1991, and that game was like 1991. It was wide open, it was physical, it was dirty. I loved it. I had no trouble staying awake watching that game.
Here's the thing I want to say, and it's a general overall comment about both the Western Conference series right now. Okay, they're both 1-0. Obviously, Colorado's up 1-0. Calgary's up 1-0. They both appeared to be close games. There was an overtime game, and neither game was close. Colorado blew St. Louis out of the water, and Calgary blew Edmonton out of the water. Really, and the reality is, I mean, look,
but they tied it up 6-6.
I know, but that was Markstrom giving up 6 goals on 20 shots. I mean,
it's no longer a blowout when you tie it up 6-6.
But I'm just saying.
Let me do this, folks. Right. Let me just do this, Zach, before you go on. I want to take a bow for Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen costing Edmonton a game they should have won.
Yeah, I mean, the goaltending was an issue, but I mean that, my takeaway from that was Connor McDavid. That's everything that I have been talking about why we want to see him in the playoffs. And I didn't see that as goaltending letting Calgary down. I saw as Connor McDavid kind of willing that team sort of back into that game. And giving it a shot. And I completely agree that it was Edmonton's goaltending. Like, make a save. Like, hold your team in it. I mean, there were times, especially when it was 6-6.
I couldn't believe with the Yamamoto goal, it got to 6-6. I was like, my God, look at this game. The goaltending for Edmonton is abysmal, and the team has tied it.
Calgary was just as bad, if not worse, than the two Edmonton goalies.
That's pretty close to true, yeah.
If Mikko Koskinen wasn't in the net for Edmonton, I would have thought Mikko Koskinen slipped into the Calgary locker room, put on Markstrom's jersey, because Markstrom's goals that led up to the getting tied 6-6 were as bad as Koskinen.
But I do know what Eck's talking about. Eck always looks at the minute things with goalies, and from very early on, Markstrom was having trouble handling the puck.
Yeah, he was going down way too early. He was, he gave up at least two goals to Hyman when he wasn't So if the goal's like this, right? This is the goal. Try to follow this. Okay, and this is the goalie. So the goalie should be facing this way, but instead you're back like this. You give up. If you're back against your post, not turned like this, you give up the whole side of the net. Right. He did that on at least two goals.
Yeah, and Hyman roofed it on the one.
It was a great shot.
It was a great shot, but there was no reason that angle shouldn't have been easy.
Yeah, but I don't know. I thought though, Smith was far worse. I think I thought the Calgary collapse was more the Oilers' charge, and I thought the Calgary goals was more the Edmonton goaltending.
Well, I do think, Kev, that Markstrom, when they're up 6-4 late in the second period, that Calgary needs a save from Markstrom there to keep.
Yeah, he lost focus.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
No, I mean, I'm not saying he was good. I'm just saying, that was like Shesterkin in that one game where there was
they're going back to Mike Smith, right? That's obvious.
So.
Well, I like Mike Smith. I mean, he's the best you got. I mean, of the two of them, and at this point, it is again. Or I would bring somebody up. Like, I honestly would just
put him in.
At this point, I would do that. I mean, what is the point of either of these guys? Like, if they're going, I mean, you got to give Mike Smith one more chance.
I would go one more game, and then I would
play well for you against LA at times.
Yeah,
give him one more shot. But if he has another game like that,
but Daryl Sutter has some worries here. There's some big time worries for Daryl Sutter here in his team, because he doesn't like the fact that Edmonton got behind his defense. He didn't like. There's a lot of things there he didn't like that he had no control over, and that's probably something. Like I said, hey, let me see your scoring, Calgary, and I did, and I didn't see any defense.
Russ, he didn't like the fact that his team had to score 8 goals to win. He said it as much in the post.
Yeah. He didn't like anything about that game.
No, I don't think any coach is going to like anything about that game. Is there?
No.
I mean, they said I think someone said if the game in there were this right, this is the kind of film you're just going to throw away. You're not even going to look at it. It's like this. Everybody did everything wrong. Calgary got so goal hungry that they stopped playing defense, and Calgary just realized that if they got shots, they were going to score. So they just wanted to run it up. At one point, I felt like that was happening, and they just stopped playing defense altogether. As opposed to shutting it down. Like, a lot of times we see games like 5-0 in the first period or whatever. We think to ourselves, man, that's game. If that keeps going like this, it'll be 22-0 by the end of the game.
I think
teams stop doing that.
Yeah, I think Edmonton can draw positives of this, because if they can get any kind of goaltending out of Smith, I think they're more in this series than people realized.
Well, it's a huge positive because you've shown that you can beat Markstrom, and the fact that you can score goals on Markstrom is a big positive. I mean, that's like, you don't want to ever, when you're in a series. I mean, look at what Ottinger did to Calgary. It's possible to really get inside, and Markstrom's not inside their heads now. That's for sure.
Here's one positive for Edmonton. Draisaitl on the goal that made it 6-5. He seems to, even though he has apparently a high ankle sprain, he can skate straight lines and skate well up the ice. He beat Rasmus Anderson on that goal, but you could see how labored he was turning. So that's something that may affect him deeper into the series. But, at least he can keep up with the pace, and they need Draisaitl to do that. On the negative side, I'll tell you this. Evander Kane is going to cost this team a game because he's a loose cannon. He punches Lucic after Lucic throws a clean check against McDavid late in the third period when I think it was 6-6. before when Kachuk came out of the penalty box to score the goal. He's punching Kachuk. Kachuk's basically doing nothing. He may have said something to him. And
he said something to him, Mike.
Yeah, but Kane gets drawn. Kane, they would have had a power. They would have had a 2-man advantage rush if he would have just
But he was jawing at him about being bankrupt. I saw the GIF.
Oh, Jesus.
And that's what Kachuk was doing. And so I can't blame Evander Kane in this case. Matter of fact, if I'm Evander Kane and I could get Kachuk off his game by getting him to keep screaming about me, about my money, that could be a positive.
Well, Kachuk was not off his game. He scored a hat trick. So
I know, but at that moment, it wasn't. He didn't have a hat trick at that moment.
No, he didn't. But Kev, I mean, we know the Kachuks. We know that. And okay, talk about stuff that is outside of the game. Apparently, in Ottawa, they have a problem with Brady Kachuk being in the crowd rooting for his brother.
Who cares?
I mean,
it's your brother.
It's your brother. I mean, come on. What, is his dad not supposed to root for Calgary because, his other son plays for Ottawa?
I root for anybody named Cohen in any sport. If my brother's in a game, I'm rooting for him. I don't care.
I remember James Van Riemsdyk being in Chicago when Trevor Van Riemsdyk won the Stanley Cup. I remember these are things that happen. Like your brother's your brother.
Yeah.
That's
I don't know. I mean, you can always find someone on social media to be
I don't
negative about something. So you just kind of got to live with it and shrug.
I did feel like that Calgary can get it together and take down Edmonton pretty easily after watching that game is what I felt. And you guys didn't get the same impression, obviously.
I don't feel that way. I feel like Edmonton at times was cutting through Calgary's defense easily, and it would be up to Markstrom to stop them. And if Markstrom's not going to be 100%,
right,
the Calgary gets
but can we really say that he's not going to be 100%? He just had a bad game.
He's a little off. Markstrom is just a little off his game, and Edmonton gets NHL average goaltending. This is a tough series.
But I also think that I don't think you can. I don't think you can depend on Calgary to be as loose as they were in this.
No.
I mean, they're up 6-2. Nine times out of 10, they're shutting it down. They got goal hungry. It was Edmonton, Calgary. I think they got caught in the emotion of it, and they wanted to make a statement, and then Edmonton didn't quit, and they came back. I'll tell you the other thing. There's going to be a war in this series. Milan Lucic, not only with the hit on McDavid, but at the end of the game when he pile drives Zach Kassian. Again, this is like the 90s. I loved it. It was fantastic. It's gonna get dirty. It's gonna get bloody. It really.
Yeah, I think this is the highest scoring playoff game in 29 years. So I think you just got to kind of throw it out.
This is an anomaly. I mean,
I think that's fair.
It's a real anomaly, and 11 different people scored. We haven't had that many people score in a playoff game in 3 decades.
Yeah.
It was an odd game, and but it was pretty clear that the Flames, not just Markstrom, but the entire team lost focus after they got up 6-2. And I thought what Mike just called it, they got goal hungry. That's probably an apt description. Everybody wanted to get in on the action, and then they lost track of what they were doing. And you can't do that with Connor McDavid. Like that one goal that he created with that little poke, and then he took 2 strides, and then he was 15 feet in front of the defense. Yeah. Like it just was just like that. Just a poke check, then boom, he's gone, and then the puck's over, and it's in the net. It was in the net before Connor McDavid could even get down there. But he created.
I don't think the next game is going to be 2-1 either, though. I think it's a little bit.
No, I think, and both these teams faced last round. There always is that like hangover from the round before. Sometimes I do buy that in the first game of series. Sometimes, and both these teams played really good goalies last round. Like Quick was playing super strong, and obviously Ottinger was playing super strong. So both of them were sort of, I think, thrilled to be able to score again. I think that was going on. It's just like, wow.
But in the end, Calgary played into Edmonton's hands about playing a wide open game and still won. But
I believe Sutter can shut that down.
Sutter will beat them over the head and say you cannot play that way against Edmonton because that's playing their game. They make them play our game, and I don't think Edmonton can play Calgary's game. So that's where I think the series is going to go.
Yeah, but the more I think about it, I think Kevin I think is right to a degree about the whole. I do think that there is a and Russ to you as well. I do think that there are question marks as to if Calgary's defense can handle Edmonton's offense. I do think that is something.
I think that's a legit question until next
Calgary's
season.
defense isn't.
I mean, that's true of any defense. Just because
sure.
Connor McDavid is an exceptional player.
Yeah, but I think we all thought Calgary would handle it better than this. I think we could all agree on that.
Yeah. No, his speed, especially on the power play with a little more open ice. I mean, it's like going through like a hot knife going through butter. I mean, he just goes around Goodbranson and Zadorov like they're pylons. So, they have to find, later in the game, they had like Backlund on him, and Backlund is quick, and he sort of not neutralized him, but had him in a little bit more control. And then I think Calgary, if you can keep him under control and limit him to 2 points instead of 4 points, then you're probably in great shape. Now, I want to bring this up because I'm always concerned about the presentation of the game. Okay, I watched the game last night on ESPN because legally the CBC broadcast is in standard def, so I want to watch the game in high def. John Buchagras and Brian Boucher were doing the play-by-play. Okay, it's on ESPN. ESPN's presentation, and they've been broadcasting the NHL for a year, was horrible. Not only because I don't know whether they have the CBC broadcast, whether they're ripping the broadcast from CBC and they're broadcasting over it, but when Buchagras says he shoots, he scores, and the puck is still on a player's stick.
Yeah, they are. There was a syncing issue between the feed, which is I'm told comes from Canada. The Canada is giving them the feed, and then the syncing issue of the audio that is being brought, and then putting them together. Whether there was sometimes there's a delay on one of them, not both of them. I think that's what you might have seen, something like that. It felt like there was a delay.
And the Chiron graphics as well. It's like there's a power play going on. They don't have the time. They just have power play. It's like every broadcast, even local broadcast, has the time clicking. I mean, if they did this for NBA games where they have the 24-second clock in the corner, they would get excoriated. But it's almost like this is second-class citizen stuff, which is
I've got a positive for ESPN though. So everybody, we all know the theme for their hockey, and actually for the playoffs, they went to a band named Joywave, who I've seen in concert, and they asked them to remix it. But they loved the theme so much, they were like, we can't really remix it. It's really a classic. But they did a cover of it. And if you go to Joywave's Twitter feed, it's really good. Like they did a nice job with it. And I think that
it reminds me of video hockey, because it was like that was such a when ESPN had hockey before, that was what came up when you played like NHL 94 or whatever on Xbox. And it really reminds me of like playing video hockey at my old house.
And that's a nice little touch that ESPN did. They didn't have to do that.
I think Buchagras has been phenomenal. I'm going to throw that out there. Like, I think he is. I'm surprised at how good he is play-by-play wise. I think he's really.
Yeah, I thought he's been good too.
And I never thought of him as a play-by-play guy, right? Like he was an analyst.
Well, he did play-by-play for college.
Yeah. Okay, but when the NHL was there, he wasn't doing play-by-play before.
No.
But he does it. He does a really nice. And it's nice to have some different things being said. Like Buchagras will say things that we just haven't heard over and over and over again.
That's true.
And that's nothing against anybody else, or all the other guys who do things, but it's just Buchagras has his own way of it, and it is a little bit of a collegey thing to it, which is cool. There's definitely an American thing to it, which is cool from my perspective, because there's definitely the way, and we don't have all the same expressions as Canadians do, but American hockey is getting its own little expressions, which Buchagras throws in there.
But the funny thing is, Zach, I almost think they have things reversed, because they have Steve Levy in the studio,
right,
and they have Buchagras play-by-play. I think Buchagras would do a better job in studio, and Steve Levy.
I disagree too, and I think one of the reasons they put him in there is, usually you've got to build up the fan base for a broadcaster, especially a new one. But Buchagras came with one because he's a very likable guy, and he had a massive following on social media, and because of that, like, people just sort of instantly like him. And I think there is a connection with fans that he seems to have. There's not much negative about him. So, and I think that's why they put him on there. And I think people are responding to him.
I have been close with him since I started. Like, he was one of the first people that reached out to me when I was getting going, way back when. And that was when, ESPN was even still with or was possibly going to stay with the NHL after the lockout. Who knew, right? What was going to happen after that point? But so I mean, I have interviews with him, and I did he was nice to me, like right off the bat. He's just a good guy, like he absolutely. And the reality is, I talked to him throughout the entire process of him wanting hockey back on ESPN and just killing him that he was there and that he couldn't do hockey because he was tied into ESPN and he wants to. Why would I leave ESPN? It is the best place to be in sports.
He's always been down to earth. He answers emails. He's really good that way.
But he's a legitimate hockey guy at ESPN. That's really important. Like that's really important that we have a legitimate hockey guy at ESPN, not just like a normal. And he stayed there the entire time waiting for hockey to return. Like he was pining for hockey. I've talked to him over the years. He's pining for hockey. So how passionate he is that this is back. Mm-hmm. It's legitimate. It's like I've talked.
Oh no, it's legit.
I've talked to him over the years when he didn't have it, and you did college, and college is great and all that stuff, but. Man, you couldn't wait, for the NHL to come back. So this is like
I had a long discussion with him before Game 2 in Toronto about sushi because William Nylander got sick on sushi, and we went on for 10 minutes. It was great.
He will talk to you. He'll sit down. He'll talk to you.
Oh yeah,
he's just a really legitimate person.
Always and Levi, I think it takes some work to bring some of the analysts in at ESPN. And I thought Levy does a good job with that, trying to bring him in. So it's hard. Some of those guys, like they're not naturals.
You're right. You're right. Levy has to look. He was on FAN a million years ago.
Levy feels New York to me. I have a little bit of a bias. Like a Philadelphia, New York thing going on with him. Like,
he's been doing this.
Isn't he a Boston guy?
He's a New York guy.
He's a New York guy. He's been doing the Stanley Cup thing with Melrose for years before this.
Yeah.
So he does know how to get the other guys loose, and he's really good at that.
Ironically, wasn't he a Philly guy to start with, Russ, and then went?
He may have been. I only knew him
like in his very, very beginning. He started off in like ABC in Philadelphia or something like that.
I just know he's made recommendations on Boston restaurants to me that have been fantastic, and people always say, I remember I was looking for a restaurant, and someone said,
he may be from Boston. I just know he's been a New York broadcaster, like
born in New York, went to Oswego.
Yeah.
So
it was funny.
But he knows Boston.
Somebody out there who listening to this in the comments, because there was a Steve Levy that was a Philadelphia when I was little, like talking like 80s and 90s, who was in Philly, who left like the sports world to go to Boston. I think it's just a different Steve Levy altogether. It's just funny, but it's the same name. So it's anyways.
But the other guy that I think has risen this season is Callahan. I think he's really good.
Actually,
I like his take.
He was at FAN, MSG, WCBS. So he never was in Philly.
It's a different Levy. It's pretty funny. Somebody out there who's my age in Philly will know this.
I think Callahan's been really good on ESPN. I think
he's gotten better. He was rough at the beginning.
I think Anson Carter's been really good on TNT, but he's been on NHL Network for a number of years. I mean, one of the things I think that the switch over from NBCSN to the two new networks, I think a lot of new talent has come about. And, I like AJ Malesko and Leah Hextall. And so, I mean, but I just think there's a feeling out process. And the only thing I have criticism about is if ESPN, if you're broadcasting a game like Edmonton, Calgary, maybe you should send your own crew up there instead of ripping it off of CBC and having the play-by-play 2 seconds behind the actual video or the video.
I wonder if it has something to do with the issues of getting across the border right now. Maybe. I mean, I don't have any idea, but I mean, I think it's been kind of fun that we've had different analysts, and I like the panel thing. It doesn't always work because sometimes the guys don't have much to say, but
I like the Bissonnette Taka dynamic actually quite a bit. Like, I think it's pretty good. Like I think that I mean,
Bissonnette, by all accounts, has been the best guy there because he's different. So
I think Taka's been good too. Like I really
Taka's been good in a gruff kind of way. Like some things he doesn't want to give up, and they sort of draw it out of him. and I think that's good.
But that's what's interesting is there is that coach-player dynamic between Tocchet and Bissonnette that I like. Like I like watching like Tocchet. It's funny because Tocchet was like every bit the goon that Bissonnette was, like as a player.
Well, come on. Bissonnette can barely play.
Yeah.
No, I know. But every bit the tough. Like they're both tough guys, right? They both were tough guys when they played. Tocchet was a way better player. I'm not comparing them, but I'm just saying that now Tocchet as a coach, it's funny to hear it's always funny for me to hear Tocchet reserved because Tocchet, I knew Tocchet as a player, as a person, as a player, and as a person, as a coach. And it's just it's just funny to hear him because he definitely was as intense as any player I've ever, been around, and just completely has kind of put on this coach's hat, which is he's still intense deep down. And I think that's what you're seeing sometimes on this panel because they're on there so often that eventually you're not gonna be able to put on.
What's interesting though, still from start to finish, I still prefer TNT over ESPN. Even from the looking standpoint, even from the way they're covering the game, I think it's better. And I feel like ESPN's got something to learn from TNT. That's my takeaway.
That is interesting. I mean, I think I like the fact that they're two different ones. I like that. I like that we have two different altogether because, when you're watching Canada, like I watch on Sportsnet on the satellite and stuff like that, it's always the same. And I think it's cool, and I like the guys. The guys in Canada, of course, are incredibly talented, but we won't get into the Gretzky thing. I want to talk about Florida, Tampa for a second because
it's tied into this, Zach, because
the coach of the year,
Andrew Brunette was nominated for coach of the year. The Jack Adams, along with Daryl Sutter and Gerard Gallant. So I give Brunette a lot of credit. Coming in 7 games into the season, not expecting to be the head coach and carrying that team to the record that they had. I don't know who's going to win it, but it's a good.
Yeah, if I would have said odds, I think Sutter is the guy. I think
Sutter's the guy. I think it's Sutter.
Yeah, me too. I'll just throw out something that someone from the hockey world that I think we all respect said to me. Yeah, Brunette did a good job, but from my chair, the one thing they really needed to do was to improve their defense. And he said, I saw none of that. He said, I've not seen any improvement in their defense.
That's fair.
And he is still despite winning the President's Cup, he could he be the first coach ever who's an interim coach to win this award? I mean, he's still an interim coach.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Was Dan Bylsma? Did he win it?
But was he named? Was he given a coach? Was he given a job before he won it? Like, was he actually?
Didn't he win as an interim coach, or was he named coach? I can't remember now.
Like he named coach during the playoffs of those years, if I remember right. I might be wrong, but they were. I know they. I mean, he was definitely.
Well, I mean, he was hired in mid-season.
He was hired as an interim coach.
Yeah. So maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was just hired as a coach. I don't recall.
He was hired as interim, I think, but I don't think he was. But I thought he was signed as they went along. Like, there's been no real apparent news about Brunette being signed. And I think Kevin, it goes along with what you're saying. I think there are some things that they didn't really fix. It depends on what you have talent wise. And maybe this team is pretty far along. They just won a cup. Maybe it's not a first time coach job. Maybe this is like a Barry Trotz type position moving forward, or somebody like that. Maybe this is a team that's ready to take that next step now because they just.
I don't know if his job is safe. That's the funny thing.
I know. I don't think
Jack Adams and be fired.
I don't think it's safe at all. To be honest, that's just my opinion.
Ken Hitchcock with the St. Louis Blues in 2012. Bruce Boudreau with the Capitals in 2008.
They were all interim coaches.
Bill Barber with the Flyers in 2001.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. So there was a few.
I guess there is that thing of we always get this year. This award does seem to have some bit of overcoming things to it. You know what I mean?
For sure.
I think you're right.
Because in my opinion, the coach of the year this year was Sullivan in Pittsburgh, bar none. I really thought I thought he had the best year of any coach this year.
I think he's had too many good years. That's his
right.
problem.
He's had great years, but Pittsburgh was a mess at times, and they lost players. And Penguins continued to get better as the year went along. And it's just and had he not lost Jarry, they
probably in there for the amount of wins. He had 52 wins, a Ranger team record. That's why he's in there.
And he did a good job.
He did a good job.
Well, obviously, Cam Neely doesn't think that Bruce Cassidy should be nominated for the.
We need to talk about this.
Yeah. Here's the quote from Cam Neely. I think we have to look at changing how we do some things. I think Bruce is a fantastic coach, but I do think we need to make some changes in how we coach.
There are some heavy rumors flying around Boston about Cassidy.
Excuse me, Cam. This is the failure of your general manager,
who he extended,
spending $6 million on Taylor Hall, who had an average year. He, who didn't adequately replace. I mean, Swayman might be a good NHL goaltender, but I think that but they have not. They didn't replace Krejci. They replaced him with Eric Halla. Yep. They ended up keeping Jake DeBrusk because they couldn't get what they think was worth for.
They didn't replace.
They were all prepared to trade him. I mean, the moves and the lack of moves that they've. Nick Foligno was a disaster signing for them. I mean, the fault is not Bruce Cassidy. You got to give the guy something to work with.
Neely and Sweeney have put all the pressure on Cassidy when Cassidy can only do what he has on the roster, and the other guy who just got extended has not done a great job with the roster. But Cam Neely, he doesn't.
I'll tell you what, I've heard some things, and I don't know if you've heard things too, Kevin, about Cassidy, but there are some things out there about Cassidy for sure. And there's definitely, and it's not just the general managers, it's some of the players not being fans of Cassidy's. And I think that, so I wonder what's going on in that room. I'm not convinced, that it's perfect in there at all.
Well, I think Cassidy does a good job.
I think he does a good job from where we sit for sure.
Yeah, maybe guys don't like the way he plays. That certainly could happen. I mean, what if it comes down to, and I shouldn't even bring this up, but I'm just saying as an example, what if the top players on that team don't like the style of play?
Exactly.
And could that
we were winning.
So I agree. I just know that they have a winning culture there. The team is always competitive.
Yeah.
He seems to have his teams always in a game.
Right.
So I don't know what not to like.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, they
that series could have gone either way.
It could have
been incredible, right? Because
the difference in the series, Kev, was Taylor Hall taking a 4-minute double minor when they were down 1-0, and Carolina scoring the goal, and they never recovered.
Yeah.
That was it.
Well, it is odd that we always say Game 7s are coin flips, but coaches get fired over losing Game 7s.
Yeah.
Even though we say, well, anything can happen in a Game 7, but if you don't win them, then we got to fire you.
Right.
At the end of the year, they don't remember Game 7. They just remember they didn't get out of that round.
Yeah, no, that's well put, Eck. That's all they care about. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
We lost the first round. We lost the second round. We lost the playoffs. That's what it comes down to, right? So let's talk about Florida and Tampa, because that first game, I think we're going to see a very different game tonight than that first game. It was. And I did write today my soliloquy, which I've gone through before, about how the Panthers got screwed at the end of that game, and that is the rule that
was a bad call.
That rule needs to be changed because it's just so friggin' ridiculous that they have to challenge that goal, which everybody thought was questionable,
right?
And that they have to challenge it, and if it's decided that it's not, they get shorthanded again. Yeah. It took what was a 2-1 game, that goal makes it 3-1, and now but if that goal is disallowed, it's 2-1.
Yeah.
It ends up 4-1 because of the penalty. It's like, so a great game just kind of lost everything in a matter of seconds. And it's just that we have goal review in the overtimes. We've seen that. That's an automatic thing now that we know that they review every goal that's scored in overtime. That is something that happens.
Well, this is my.
Why is this not happening in the third period? It's in the playoffs. It's just baffling to me. I literally, Mike, have gotten calls from people. I have friends and I wrote this today. If you're the hockey guy in America, you have and your friends, stuff like that. If something happens in hockey in any way, shape, or form, all those casual people call you up and they're like, so what's the deal with this? Why was Florida penalized for for that goal not counting, or what, that shouldn't have been. I'm like, yeah, it's like the NFL, they get everything. And literally 2 guys said to me, the NFL gets it right. I'm like, well, I don't get it.
Well, no, that's not true. But this is the issue. This is the issue. Somebody who has watched hockey since he's 5 years old, somebody like Kevin, who has covered the game for almost as long. I don't know what goalie interference is anymore. It's not defined.
I don't even care. I don't
No,
even care.
you have to care.
I mean, you could call it. I could go either way on that play too. I felt like his head was hit, and the way they define goalie interference. Koharski gets on there, and I like having Koharski on there, and he comes on and he says if the goalie is hit and doesn't have time to reset, that's goalie interference. Okay, there's no way he had time to reset. His head was hit.
I mean, he just gets his head snapped, and then
the puck flies by as his head flies by this way.
That's still subjective, though. I agree with you that we should review all the goals, but that's the problem. There's always going to be the human element in it, and you see it all the time in the NFL. You're sitting in a room with your buddies watching the game. You all see the same thing, and you can't agree.
And put Brunette in this position, right?
Okay, how about just keeping the
Brunette here for a
out of the
second?
blue paint?
And check this out, okay? Brunette is out there, and because of what he sees there, like when I see the play happen live, I don't think it's goalie interference. I'm like, that doesn't look like goalie interference. They slow it down, his head, and then maybe it could be goalie interference. So it was like right on the edge. Right, it's right on the edge, right? So, but Brunette, if he doesn't challenge that, he's going to get killed because they're going to say there could have been.
Yeah, that's right. But you're arguing, but you're right. We should just stipulate that. I mean that should be changed, but you're not going to change it in the middle.
You're not going to change it now, but I don't understand how it's not being discussed.
Well, here's what I would say: if you don't change the rule, don't let anybody in the blue paint.
Yeah, you got to go hardcore. Yeah, you're right.
If you don't let anybody in the blue paint, you're going to have a lot less of it.
I mean, Cirelli did a sort of jump step to the right and hit.
He knew what he was doing.
Of course, he knew what he was doing. Of course, it's what you can get away with.
How close he was to necessarily.
No, he knew, Eck.
Maybe he did.
Well, what's going to happen is if you did blue paint, you're going to do what happened when we had in the year of the Brett Hall. The goalies are going to start playing the puck, a foot outside the thing, and then people are going to say you can't touch the goalies.
So how about this then? A 3-second rule like you have in the NBA. You get 3 seconds in that blue paint, and that's it. You got to move.
Well, now you got the refs now got to call that then, and you see 1001, 1002, 1003. That's hard to.
But I think you have to do something for the goalies here because I do think the goalies are under siege. Like I just interviewed a goalie the other day, right? He's not even in the NHL, and he agreed the pileups that happen in the NHL in front of the net are extreme.
Yeah, and the guy skating in and not stopping is also.
And how many times do we see now pileups, and we have no idea where the puck is? We don't know if the goalie has the puck. We don't know if the puck went in. We don't know if it's under somebody. Like that happens 3 times a game now.
Yeah. I do worry about getting back to the series itself, though, I do worry about Bobrovsky in this series still. And it's not like he played terribly last game. He didn't. Outplayed, but Vasilevsky outplays a lot of goalies.
Well,
but I just think that last year, if you remember the series last year with those two teams, they went to night at the very end, right? They went to night. I think it was the last game or the second to last game, and he was last year. They went to Spencer Knight.
They went Spencer Knight in Game 5 last year.
Okay, Game 5. So it was a 6-game series. Spencer Knight won Game 5, lost Game 6
after going to Dredger earlier in the series.
Right, because he was hurt, right? Or Bobrovsky. No,
Bobrovsky was terrible.
Bobrovsky was terrible. He doesn't have a great history against Tampa. He just doesn't. And I've gone back and looking at Bobrovsky's record against Tampa. It's not the greatest. There's a lot of guys over there that know him inside out. They've played against him so many times.
Well,
I mean, the one thing Bobrovsky holds over Tampa is the series. He played for Columbus when Columbus beat them back in the playoffs, which was an incredible series where he played against. But since that series, his record against Tampa is just not good. I think that they have to seriously consider moving.
The one thing that Tampa Bay's got to worry about is, Perry got hurt, Cernak got hurt.
For sure,
it's getting to be a war of attrition. I don't know if Point's going to play in this series now with Florida. Verhaeghe is a game time decision. He's been arguably their best.
He has been their best player.
Yeah, so these teams will beat the crap out of each other. All these teams do. It's just a question of who can survive.
Interesting. Speaking of that whole injury and not knowing what's going on there,
yes.
Even though injuries don't play the role in betting that people think they do, it's more math than anything. Yeah. But I've heard some kind of undercurrents about the betting world who have been very disappointed in the return on hockey. It just isn't the gravy train that they hoped it would be. And they also don't like that there's never any information on injuries.
Yeah.
Because even though they know that it really doesn't matter much. That their bettors think it does. And so it's going to be interesting if they start pressuring, because the NFL, is so good about publishing information. The NBA has actually improved as well on their information. So,
I mean, Kev, the one thing, okay, the NFL, you have to declare what the injured player is, what the injury is, if he's doubtful, questionable, et cetera, et cetera. Bill Belichick is pulled off, everybody is questionable. He's had like 15 players questionable, and then they all play. You can play around with the system, but yeah, the NHL, I mean, this is
the issue, right? I mean, the issue, right, Mike, and again, this is obviously the reason the NHL doesn't want to do it is if a guy's knee is hurt, everybody will go after that knee, and that's the reality. That is,
that's the NFL.
Yeah, that's the argument is the NFL argument,
right? And that's and I think that's a legitimate argument for not naming injuries. I think that's more important than betting.
Well, but just so the people know what the argument from the NFL is, we're also letting our officials know, right, so they can protect the player.
Okay. And what if we went to a different system? This lower body, upper body. I remember one time asking Paul Holmgren about an injury, and they said it was lower head. What if we went to a different system?
Pat Quinn in Toronto was the one who started it, but no,
let me finish. I think what if we went to a system of level of injury, like a level 1 injury, meaning like basically day to day. Level 2, he's going to miss this game and probably the next. Like we have something that bettors know whether he's in or out, not what it is. Does it matter to bettors what it is versus whether he's in or out?
No, that's right.
It does.
It does, but I mean, can we come up with a compromise there somewhere that doesn't put the players in jeopardy, but lets the bettors know a little bit more information?
You're taking FanDuel and DraftKings money. They expect information for that money.
I don't think that you should be. I think that the players union will be totally nuts if they start releasing these things. I think.
Well, it depends on if if there was ever any repercussions from the betting. I mean, if DraftKings said, we're just not going to allow NHL betting, because already there's some stuff built in that is not fun for them. The empty net goals. So where what some bettors perceive as the legitimate score can change once or twice in the final minute.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult. And it's an odd thing. Like it's almost like they just give the home team, make them a 1.5 goal favorite, regardless of how good the other team is. Because that 1.5 is just hard to deal with.
And factor this in. How many times have we heard? Well, Connor McDavid is a game time decision,
right?
So he's going to skate before the game starts, which it's about 15 to 20 minutes before top of the puck. Okay, in the NFL, they have to declare whether a player is in or inactive 2 to 3 hours before the game. That allows the bettors to be able to say, okay, well, I know that I can bet Green Bay with Jordan Love at quarterback rather than Aaron Rodgers. I'm telling you, these companies are giving the NHL money, and they expect information for that money. And if they're not going to give information, they're going to say, screw you, break the contract.
But the NFL take is so big that it's such big money. I mean, that maybe has something to do with it. It's small potatoes.
It's totally different. I mean, it's a different world.
But the NHL wants to build that up.
It doesn't. It never will, because it does the way the game is played. Like Kevin said, with the empty net goals, it doesn't lend itself to that. I mean, the kind of betting that works that's better in hockey is like, is this guy going to score in this game? That kind of thing. That stuff is, I think, far more interesting than
I think that has actually worked for them.
Yeah, and that's like picking like 5 guys, and then putting them in. The way FanDuel used to, I used to like that when you would pick the guys, or whatever, and that would be.
Yeah, well, they don't make as much money. What they really like, it's you get 5-1 odds if you bet McDavid and Draisaitl will score
in
the same game. Yeah, a prop bet. Yeah,
and that's a lot of fun to watch. Like that, if you're gambling, that's more fun to watch. It's kind of like
right.
and it's even
That's
more
where
fun.
they're having success.
Right, and you're not worried so much about the whole like if one team's blowing their team out, McDavid and Draisaitl could still score, and
Right.
it's so you're sitting there because gambling. The idea of gambling, I've always thought, is to get people who don't have a natural rooting interest in that game into that game, right? So,
fantasy sports did that.
Yeah. Right. Fantasy sports does that all the time.
Yeah,
and I agree. I think that's definitely the case. So. It's the last thought on the Panthers and Lightning tonight. I think it's going to be a different series. I think that the Panthers came out, they were again really nervous. I don't know if they're just not used to playing in front of 20,000 people down there, and the pressure. People are saying that crowd's not loud. I'm not buying that. I've talked to people down there. It is loud.
I didn't see much of the game, but later in the game, Kev, when Florida fell behind, when usually crowds will try to egg their team on, there wasn't a lot of volume there. There wasn't a lot of passion there. And remember, this is a team that during the season on a Tuesday night, there was 5,000, 6,000 people. And this is one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'll tell you one, and it may not mean anything because I'd love to see what the ratings are of this. That'll tell us more. But
yeah,
I was in a public place in New York, and in the Edmonton Calgary, there were plenty of people watching that. Goals were flying. Right. I also saw in a public place, it was a bar setting, the Tampa Bay Florida game. Nobody was watching. I mean, nobody.
Yeah.
Like there was just no national interest in that game. But there was when the Oilers and Flames were running around scoring. Now that game was a little later, so that is something. Right. So, but anyway, it may not mean anything. I'd love to see the ratings to see, how that one's doing as opposed to say the Rangers series.
Right.
So,
right, that's true. And then
St. Louis, Colorado, we got to mention, if Colorado wins, it was a tight game and Binnington played fantastic, but
it wasn't a tight game at all.
No, tight game in terms of score.
The scoring chances were unbelievable.
Right,
the ridiculousness of it.
But
and yes, Mike, I can curse everybody. You're right, by the way. Binnington's playing out of his mind goal. Not just that. The night before, I literally typed Ottinger into Twitter in that series. Just when Ottinger right before Gaudreau scores, I'm like, Ottinger, what an unbelievable performance is going on right now. I was going to say you got to watch this if you're not watching. I typed into Twitter, before I could hit send, they scored, and only because I got called away for a second.
Don't do it, Eck.
So
just don't do it.
I'm going to start weaponizing this. I think I'm going to try to find boy, isn't Vasilevsky look? But I'm going to weaponize this just because I am. We should talk about superstitions on some show because I'm so crazy superstitious about it.
During the summer.
Yeah, we were talking about that. But there's I had one team person said, you know what? Believe it or not, your superstitions aren't going to change this. I'm like, you're right. I know that, but I'm still sitting here terrified that I'm doing something wrong. It's just the way I am with sports in general. All right. That's all the time we have for today. We will be back again tomorrow. Thank you so much, Kevin, for jumping on today. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Enjoy the games tonight.